Hi everybody, Andrew here, and this is the second of two videos on the sermon recordings. The first video was on just how to get the SD card into the computer, how to get it off the Mez. And then this one is going to be on how to name the files, edit the files, format them, where to put them, how to put them on the website, how to do the podcasting, SoundCloud, all that stuff. So we've just put the SD card in, and this whole dialog popped up, file dialog. And you can see there's the iKey folder right here. Down here you can see that it's showing the SD card as a drive with the iKey. So we just need to go to iKey. It's the only folder. And then when you go into records, it's the only folder. And then there's our two recordings. The first thing to notice is that these dates and times are not correct. We don't bother setting the date and time on the recorder. Instead, we just use the numbers of the file names here. 000 is the first recording, so the 9 o'clock recording. 001 is the second recording, so therefore the 11 a.m. service. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is rename these files. Now, to rename them, part of the process is to know the title of the sermon. And in this case, we're just going to call it test. But really, the way you know that is you'll receive an email from sermonprofile@wellspring.net with the sermon profile that contains the title. So let's just look over at the email. So here's the actual JotForm submission that Kevin did for this upcoming sermon, An Army of Worshipers. So you can just copy this, but again, we're gonna give it a test name instead. And this other information you're going to use later in the process. But right now, we're just renaming the file. So all we really need to know is when it was recorded and who spoke and the title. So back here, we can simply click on the file, click again to go into rename, and we name it a 4-digit year, then the 2-digit month. Today's the 22nd. Of course, that's not a Sunday, but that is today. And then this is the 9 a.m. service. I just say 9A, and then who spoke it. First name is fine, and then a dash, and then the title. Actually, I'm going to say Andrew here because it's a test. And the name of the sermon is Test Sermon. I'm just going to grab this to make things easier. Copy, hit enter, or just click outside of it. And then I'm going to rename this one as well, and then just say 11 a.m. Click outside. So now that we've renamed them, we want to empty this card of the recording so it's ready to be used again, and then move these files onto the local drive so that we can process them much faster. So I select them, and then I do a cut, which is a Control X, or I could have right-clicked and chosen cut. And then I want to put them in the raw folder locally. On this is my laptop. This PC documents sermons raw, and then I can just paste them in here. Paste. Now they're right here in that raw folder, and they're no longer on the drive in the iKey folder. Here, let's go back there and take a look at that. See, it's empty now. So at this point, you can eject the drive, or eject the SD card, which it's treating as a drive. Eject, and then you can pull out the card. It's safe to remove. Alright, so we got rid of the card. So back in the raw folder, we've got the 9 and the 11, and these are raw recordings, so they have stuff before the sermon, maybe after the sermon, and we're keeping that just in case there's like maybe a prophetic word or an announcement that somebody might want to hear in the future. We're about to edit out all that stuff, but we keep these raw versions in case somebody wants to hear something that we edited out. Now, we generally post the 11 o'clock sermon unless we're told otherwise. Sometimes the pastors will tell us right after the service, please use 9 o'clock, it was way better. But if they don't tell us anything, we use the 11. So just double click on it and it will open the Total Recorder program. Okay, so when Total Recorder opens, you'll see that it opened two windows. This one up here, which is where you can actually play the recording. And then you have these tools here like set the beginning, set the end, and then save the selection. This setting here determines how far this advance, by step button advances. 4 seconds is how I have it set. And then this section here is the playlist. Right now we have one file in it, the one we double clicked on, the 11 o'clock sermon. But as we create new versions, they'll be added to this, and we just click on them here to determine which one we're working on. So now I'm going to show you this test recording that I made for this. We're going to trim off the beginning and trim off the end. So you just listen at the beginning and determine where you want to start it. And now the 11 o'clock service, blah, 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 stuff we don't want, stuff we don't want, blah, 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 blah. And now for the sermon. So I click beginning this right there. Yes, yes. And I would advance towards the end. Closing prayer. Amen. And then set the end. Blah, 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 stuff we don't want, stuff we don't want, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so now we've made this selection. We set the beginning, we set the end. Now the next thing to do is just put it back at the beginning, and this little button does that. Go to the beginning of the selection, and then listen back to it by hitting play. Now you can't hear this because I put my headphones back on, but it worked, so we don't need to adjust it. If we did need to adjust it, we would just start here, hit play, capture a new beginning somewhere else. And then you also can test the end, but the end isn't as critical. So listen, and now it makes sense. So we're good. Now we have a good selection. What we want to do now is save the selection into the final folder. So click this. We're in raw. We go up one, go to final. Next, we just want to grab this name. So I'm just copying that name. And then we want to set tags for this file. So we go into this MP3 tag window, and then we click on this icon, which is to copy tag from another file. It's just way easier to copy it than to enter them all over again. So I go to the most recent sermon, double click on it. Now I've got its tags, which includes this artwork here, which we want for the podcast. And then I just paste in that name that I just grabbed and delete the .mp3 at the end. Make sure the year's good, and then we're good. Okay, we've set the tag, and then save into final. There, now in the playlist we have a new file which we want to switch to, so I'm going to double click on it. So we've double clicked on this, so now this bar represents just the selection. So if I play it, it'll be the part that we want, just the sermon. Now the next step is to create the web version. Now just a word about the difference between final and web. Final is a stereo file. It was actually a mono recording, so it's really just the same recording on left and right, but that's what we use to make the CDs. Just iTunes works better with the stereo file, but now we're going to make it smaller so it works better with the web. So all we have to do is, once we've selected this file, go to File, Save As, and then we want to change it. Right now it's 128-bit, 44.1 hertz, kilohertz stereo, and we want to change it to 64 bits, 44.1 kilohertz mono. Then OK. And then instead of saving it in final, we save it in web, save, and it takes a little while to create that. Once it's done, it shows up here as the third recording, and we're done in Total Recorder. So the next thing we want to do is back in a browser is we want to go to Google Drive, drive.google.com. I happen to already be logged in, so it's just going to go directly there. So once it opens up, however you have it set up, you want to navigate to the Wellspring Share Drive Worship Life folder. And in there you'll see that there's this Bang Bang Web, Bang Bang Raw Sermons, and Bang Bang Final Audio Sermons. We're going to copy the 3 local versions into these 3 folders. So let's start with Raw. So double click on Raw and go in there. And then once we're in there, we go to New, File, Upload. Now once it opens that dialog, you want to make sure that you're getting it from Raw. So click on that. And then down at the bottom, you'll have 2 files that you want to upload, both raw files, 9 and 11. So select them both, and then click Open, and it starts to upload both of those. I made a mistake earlier. That's why there's an extra one here in this list, but it's uploading these 2. And we don't have to wait. It'll keep going. So let's go back to Worship Life. Then go to Final Audio Sermons, and then 2017. It's a little bit differently organized than my local copy. And then go into the month, March 2017. If it's the next month, April, then you just create the April 2017 folder and put it in there. So New, File, Upload. Then again, make sure that you're in the Final folder. Go down. There will only be one of these, the 11 o'clock, because we didn't edit the 9 o'clock. Double click on that, and it starts to upload that. We don't have to wait for it. Go back to Worship Life. Go to Web. And then once we're in Web, we say New, File, Upload. Then make sure we're in Web. Go down to the bottom. There it is. Double click on it, and it starts to upload that one. Now these are much faster because this is a test recording. It's much, much shorter. It'll take a little while. Wait until it's done before you leave this window. Less than a minute left. It's done. All right, then you're all done. This is the end of what the sound guys will do, and the rest of the process is what Debbie normally does each week to put things up in SoundCloud and then on the website. Okay, so this video is a little longer than I expected, so it's actually going to be 3 videos. So I'm going to end here, and the 3rd video will be Debbie's process of putting things on SoundCloud, etc. So that's the end of the 2nd video. See you in the 3rd.